Okay. Can you guys hear and see me? Those on live, we got lots on the guest link, so it comes up as guest. Good, love it. So you can rename yourself, the three dots in the corner of your image or video. A lot of people don't have cameras on, so hopefully we can change some of that. And just as we let people kind of trickle in, just in the chat, share where you're tuning in from. If it's Winnipeg, maybe go a step further to the area of the city you're representing on tonight's call. I want to get a sense for where everyone's at. Zoom does a pretty good job muting the background, but my kids are unattended right now. Mom's at piano lessons, so if there is screaming, don't be alarmed. They won't die, hopefully. North Kildonan, St. Boniface, Southland, Grand Point, St. Genevieve, Manitoba. Tanya, I've never heard of that. We've got Brandon, we've got the North End, North Kildonan representing. Yeah, unfortunately, because of the link system, if you can change your name, maybe appreciate it, just so I know who I'm talking to, but not the end of the world. So, without further ado, valuable time on a Monday night. I'm sure you guys want to catch up on the Olympics. I'm in the, nothing's actually live, right? Because it's in Italy, but still, I've got Olympic fever, and I'm sure many of you do too. So, we want to make sure we give you some value and then send you on your way. All right, so I've still got the waiting room full here. So it's going to be a little distracting. I'm horrible at multitasking, but I'm going to open up my screen, share the presentation. Hopefully everyone can see this slowly populate. Give it a thumbs up if you do. Awesome. There will be time for questions at the end, but try to keep yourself muted. Sometimes it'll pick up your audio and then it records your screen. And obviously we don't want that. You don't want to be on the replay, I don't think so. All right. Guest room is still coming in, but without further ado, the promise was 5 pounds by Valentine's Day. And then sadly our cat passed and I had to push the presentation a lot closer to Valentine's than I'm comfortable with this promise, but we're not changing the graphics. So there you go. We're still going to get you some good results by, I believe that's Saturday. So that's a good 5 days. And really the plan here is 14 days of progress followed by an actual system you can follow for life. So I suck you in with the short-term, shiny object, and then I deliver the promise. All right. My kids are actually giggling at me right now. They're eavesdropping. Great. They're at that age now. So stick around until the end. This is a full PDF I put together with the whole plan that we're going to walk through on this presentation. So you'll get that. So don't worry about feverishly taking notes. Try to be as present as possible. Close all the tabs. Put the phone face down. I know we're real distracted people these days, but the only way we get results, take action, is by being really focused. All right. So non-negotiables for this, if you choose to accept, it's 14 days only. Do not extend this beyond 2 weeks. That also means no cheats. You guys are distracted. No alcohol, not a single drink. Easier said than done, but for 14 days, I think anyone can do that. And then no guessing. This requires weighing your food, tracking everything that goes into your mouth. All right. So if you're willing to make those compromises, we'll get you the results. So a quick trip down memory lane. I used to be the king of going down the extremes. This pixelated photo is when I was 260 pounds in my 20s. And I had actually done a lot of dieting by this point, unfortunately. It just never lasted. I ended up in the ER with a bowel obstruction once when I was living in Ontario. But more often, it was just, falling off after a few weeks, gaining it back just as often quicker than I lost it, and then kind of getting in this vicious cycle. So short-term intensity creates momentum. Certainly, that's what we're trying to do here. But structure, identity shifts, that's really what keeps it going. And we'll get into how that works at the end here. All right, sorry, we got a couple more in the waiting room. No one believes in showing up on time, I guess. Tonight is 2 goals. So again, like I talked about, explain this process and then understand what comes after. So first and foremost, most people, I believe, understand this concept, right? That if you eat too much, you're not going to lose weight. If you eat too little, you're not going to gain weight. Hopefully that's kind of been busted, that whole myth. So calories are king, which means with this formula, You take your body weight, you multiply it by 11, gives you a target for the day. That works in principle almost across the board. I would say there are exceptions to the rule on either side of this, but that's a pretty good formula and an easy one to share in a group setting like this. Okay. So with that number, protein is calories thunder buddy. So this is nothing new to anyone that's been in my world. However, what's new is the added emphasis on protein in this short-term spurt. So as much as half the calories you're consuming day to day are from protein for various reasons, but it's going to help with the hunger that will certainly be present when you cut calories like this. Supports recovery from the workouts we're going to be pushing, which are harder than usual. And then it has the highest thermic effect, meaning as much as 30% of the calories don't count from protein because it takes more energy for your body to break it down and digest. So if you want a more balanced split, like macros, like protein, fats, and carbs, you'll need an even lower calorie range. Again, we're talking short term here. So that's body weight times 8 to 10, somewhere in that range. But I would suggest for your own sanity and hunger, protein goes up. So this is an extreme example, 200-pound person, 275 grams of protein at the top end. No joke. Take your Metamucil, gentlemen and ladies. Carb strategy. Timing is everything with this. You still get carbs with this plan. They just have to be a bit more strategic, meaning either pre and post workout or 2 post workout meals when you kind of depleted your carb stores from, relatively hard exercise. So some people actually perform better without any carbs before their workout. Some absolutely need something like a banana with protein or whatever. So you do you kind of thing. But the idea is we're only doing this for a couple meals a day. Okay. So again, you probably are shaking your head. Some of you are thinking this is probably not for you, and that's totally cool, right? The promise of this is good, quick results, but the sacrifices made to do it sometimes aren't worth the squeeze. All right, so type of 1, if this is making sense so far, I'm rambling. Just want to make sure we're all here. Good. Yes, I see ones. Excellent. Professional dieter. Yes, that was me. Okay, so last but not least, we actually really have to minimize the fat intake just enough to support, obviously, reducing hunger, hormones, joint health, but the bare minimum. And it's so easy for fat to sneak in without you realizing it. So I'm going to talk about how we deliberately put it at the first and last meal of the day, but your protein sources have to be pretty lean here too. And that's an area where most people overlook. So I'll give you an actual menu here in a second, but keep that in mind. Again, we're whipping through this. And then lastly, the food rules, weigh everything. Ideally not measuring cups, like tablespoons for oils and stuff makes sense, obviously, but things that you can put on a food scale should go on a food scale. My general rule of thumb is carbs cooked, protein raw. For this plan, I would often do protein cooked as well, just for the simplicity of it, but it's more accurate this way. And we're talking no stone unturned here, right? And then veggies are largely free. Some veggies have a bit of calories, but your spinach, your broccoli, your kale, your asparagus barely count towards anything. It's like because of the high fiber intake. So we just want to fill up, and those will help. Still people trickling in here. I wish that I couldn't have to do this manually. And then last but not least, watch the added sauces, sugars. We want salt to be at a decent amount, just so you're not dehydrated, especially with the lower carb diet. But try to control it to avoid water retention is the idea. So, if I had to give a number, I would say salt everything, just not, highly processed foods. And by default, you won't have any. Okay. And then use spices like Cajun and so on, flavoring. Potentially some low-calorie sauces. There's some good ones in the market now. G. Hughes is the brand I use for barbecue sauce, ketchup. It's like 1/5 the calories of the regular stuff, and honestly, tastes pretty good. It's not really artificially tasting. Actually, some of them have no artificial sweeteners at all. I might need an assistant for that next time. Thanks for volunteering yourself. I like it. So a sample day of eating. Yes, it isn't boring as you anticipated. I like the highlight of this, and I haven't done this for a long time. Mind you, is my morning omelet. So 6 egg whites, 2 whole eggs, mixed together, some spinach in it. And if I squint hard enough, it makes me feel like I'm at an all-inclusive resort. Okay, not quite as tasty with less oil, but still, it gets me that good first meal, gets me some momentum. And then the rest of the day is pretty rough until the pre and post workout. Sorry, Michelle is in. Okay. So that means extra lean ground beef drained. In Canada, our extra lean is still fairly fatty, but draining it brings it down so the fat is negligible there. And then we get our little sweet potato and our rice pre and post workout. And that you wouldn't, after a few days of this, that tastes awfully good, believe me. And then highlight of the night is the sirloin steak or flank steak, something fairly lean still, but steak is kind of a novelty on this plan. And then a shake to shake off the snack urges. You can put it anywhere you want, but usually it's just pure whey protein, greens, and veggies. Keeping in mind that it's going to be adjusted to your calorie target and your protein target, of course. So these numbers are just based off the example provided. Okay. So yeah, I'm just being honest with you guys. This is what it takes to get fast results. And sometimes, unless you've really got to be at a set weight by a set date, there are better ways, and we'll certainly share those as we go. But don't lose sight; it might be worth the challenge. Like I kind of said off the top, you'll probably be hungry. That's probably a good sign that it's working. But the high protein intake and the encouraging high on the fiber and the vegetables can negate a lot of that. Okay. Drink your water too. Never hurts to hydrate. All right. Any questions on the nutrition side of it? We'll probably save some bigger questions for the end, but feel free to drop them in the chat. And at the end, we can unmute. Yes. Ice cube in your own tears to flavor that shake. Unfortunately, that little bit of salt from your tears might help. Okay, moving on to training. So I generally like a training plan that someone can be consistent with, which usually is, 3 30-minute sessions. You can get a lot, good bang for buck from that. Maybe a fourth, depending on how long you've been at it or what you're trying to specialize in. This requires 5 days. And mainly it's just because when you're in the gym, you're burning more carbs, you're burning more energy. It's having a net impact on our aggressive plan, right? So again, if you can't realistically be in the gym 5 times a week, yes, try it for a couple weeks like we're doing here, but don't expect this to be sustainable. And that's the idea. All right, good. Trying to keep it sense of the chat. Shelly, yeah, you'll get the whole PDF at the end. That kind of breaks this down. So don't try to feverishly take notes. So the training goal is to maintain muscle because you will be susceptible to losing it with a really aggressive approach like this, even with protein high. And we're trying to burn through those stored carbs, which in theory gets us into fat burning mode. It's never as simple as that sounds. It still all amounts to how much calories you're consuming day to day, but it does support that. And more training, the more fullness you have, you look leaner, harder, fuller. Bodybuilder, right? So that's the training split. Don't worry too much about this. You can combine the shoulders and arms because those ones don't take quite as long so that you have 4 sessions, but I'll break this all down in the PDF. And again, these are general recommendations, right? Obviously, a lot of you are clients working with you personally. I don't want you to change your training split. We'll just maybe incorporate some of this if you do want to kind of experiment with this a little bit, because your plan is tailored to your injury limitations, age, gender, whatever. So this is generalized. Keep that in mind. Okay, now for the cardio. Normally, I'm just a get your steps in guy, and that is great. But with this, again, you're noticing a theme here. We are pulling out all the stops. So this is in addition to hitting your step goal, but it does count towards that, depending on the cardio piece you choose. So you've got your interval days on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So intervals, the best, most accessible form of this is on like an interval or a stationary bike, like the picture shows, where you're sprinting and pushing your heart rate quite high. Make sure you're capable of this, first and foremost, disclaimer. For upwards of 30 seconds, you can't really go for much longer than that. That's a good sign. And then 60, 90 seconds, bring back the tension, catch your breath, repeat for 20 minutes. Okay. And then 20 minutes of more steady state where you can't hold a conversation, but you're not completely gasping for air. So 40 minutes all told cardio. You will burn fat with this, with the diet in place. Okay. Sorry, keep those questions coming. I just letting a guest in. All right. So again, the time commitment here, more than usual, but that's the name of the game. And then the alternating days, easy cardio. This is still in addition to your steps, but it counts towards it. So 20 to 40 minutes of a little bit more intensity than just walking around the block. So brisk walk, light cycling, easy rowing, something you can sustain the same rate of pace for the better part of 20 to 40 minutes, whatever time you have available. Okay. So a lot more exercise time in your schedule, but it's just 2 weeks. Now, this is one that people swear by in bodybuilding circles, but has no real science to back it, is the doing cardio on an empty stomach. So if that doesn't jive, don't worry about it. I think in my experience, it helped a little bit, but not enough to say I'm getting up 45 minutes before my alarm to do it. We still want to sleep properly here. Okay. But don't lift fasted. That's a different story. You'll struggle. And disclaimer on this, no need for this, honestly, unless you've got like some photo shoot planned, diuretic protocol, like natural, keep in mind natural diuretics. There's some real, harmful pharmaceutical stuff you can use that people do, but you could get really dehydrated and have some issues. Dandelion root is the one that there's even a tea that can help pull water. But again, I would suggest totally unnecessary unless there's something you need to be ready for. Okay, so reality is the scale probably will drop, but not drastically. It's only 2 weeks, but you'll notice the waist shrinking, belts getting looser, pants fitting better, and that's all the signs that we're looking for anyway. That's usually a good tell that we're preserving the lean stuff and dropping the body fat. Other examples of diuretics. Well, yeah, there's like over-the-counter options like dandelion root, but there's like full-fledged pharmaceuticals that I don't know where to get. So don't ask. And I wouldn't suggest going down that road. Bodybuilders have put themselves into potential death with the wrong protocols with that. So they're not worth looking either with that in mind. So why this works is the high impact on training. You will overtrain with the combination of cardio, but you get like short-term benefits from that. That would probably level out, but over 2 weeks, it's going to notice a quite drastic change. Tight carb, but more so tight calorie control, high protein, and then you've got 2 weeks. Anyone can stick to anything for 2 weeks. Right? So that's why, in theory, it works. The exit plan is not to continue this forever. You won't be able to, let's be honest, and just return to those big 5 fundamentals we talk about all the time. The calorie balance, consistent training in a schedule that you can stick to, sleep, water intake, steps. Okay. So I've probably sold you on not doing this, but how I've kind of put a disclaimer in on every step to this puzzle. But hey, I hope someone does, just to see. I want some testimonials from it. So quick summary, if you want to take a photo of this, but it will be in the PDF, is the calorie range, the protein percentages, the fats, the carbs, and then the training, cardio, and duration. Pretty simple, all laid out for you in 8 squares. So on paper, 14 days, doable, right? Jackie, are electrolytes added to water recommended? Likely speaking, yes, especially with the amount of cardio you're doing, the limited carb intake, the amount of protein. I would say that's probably a good, I talk about salt, like salt's going to do the job too, but there are, you can get it from food too, but I'll send you some after this, Jackie. Yeah, I guess I'm convinced to stay with my current program. That's sort of the takeaway here. So for those on the call, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Most of your members, we just had you guys invite some of your friends onto this call to see what this was about, and then obviously show the alternative approach. That works for us. The majority of us is sustainable strategies equal sustainable results. It's a lot more pleasant experience as you do it. And generally, the results you get can stick, which is the name of the game. It's a lot harder to get these quick wins, quick results, and then gain it back and have to go through this aggressive approach again, rinse and repeat, like my old self. So what to do and get instead? That's what we're getting into here. Linda, yes, it can potentially. We can talk after on a case-by-case basis. This might be something you save for 14 days out from a vacation or something. So a big question I get, and a belief I'm breaking on today's call, is I just need more discipline. None of us are necessarily more disciplined than others. We all have it in spurts. The real issue isn't the discipline so much, or the willpower, it's trying to rely on it without any structure or support. And that's the missing piece I find is when structure's high, you don't have to negotiate with yourself. You don't rely on motivation. You have a plan, you stick to the plan, and someone's kind of there to pull you up when you fall down. That's the secret sauce. Because most plans will work in theory. Even this 14-day plan will work in the short term. They fail because when something happens, every Monday starts out with good intentions. And then Wednesday, you have some work emergency, you skip the gym, and that cascade effect leads into the weekend. And then Monday, we're starting all over again. The structure disappears and we revert to old habits. So how do we stop that before it becomes a trend? Right? Moving on. These slides are redundant. So a question to ask yourself. If your current plan or path has you dealing with the same frustrations or saying, I know what to do, nothing to show for it, or you're starting over and over again, it's the definition of insanity to keep doing these things that haven't got you results in the past. So what do we need to change? That's the goal here. Because when I do the math on this, the real cost in the past wasn't just gaining weight over time. It was the trickle-down effect of that. Energy at or after work, relying on caffeine, patience with my kids and coworkers. I think that's pretty critical for all of us. Confidence, vacation photos, that one comes up so much in conversations. Oh, I didn't like how I looked. I didn't know I looked like this. Just trust in yourself that you can commit to something and stick to it. And then obviously we talk future health, avoiding the personal care home. That's a big one until the last minute. Nothing wrong with that. People like their independence though. All right. So with that said, the question is, if nothing changes or gets worse 12 months from now, what worries me most is fill in the blank. I was on a Tony Robbins training, and I think it's called the Dickens Method. Like motivation actually starts in the worst case scenario. Like realizing the ramifications of our current situation if it gets worse or stays the same. The compound effect of doing the wrong things in our 30s, 40s, it comes home to roost. I don't know if that's the expression. In our 60s, 70s, we get diabetes, we get sick, or we lose our independence or mobility. That is because of the choices we're making today. And I know I have some superstars that are in their 70s on this call who are crushing it. So I'm not talking to you guys. But nonetheless, based off your current situation, your current approach, answer that question. And if you don't mind, share in the chat. I'd love to get a sense for what people's motivations are, what worries them, because that's how we kind of tailor our approach that does work. And I know people are going to be shy in this one because dying, yes, fair enough. Yeah, Bev, research says that action precedes motivation 100%. Which in theory, this 14-day plan, even though it's not sustainable, sometimes an aggressive approach where you feel motivated to do it because you're going to get results fast can actually be the springboard for the right thing as long as you transition correctly after. Not being able to make it to retirement, huge. We all plan our finances, but we forget to plan our fitness. That needs to last as long as our money. And in fact, it's probably more important to our retirement. Because if you don't have your health, what do you have? A full bank account, but you can't travel because the insurance is exorbitant. All these things that are tied to our health. Beautifully said. Granddaughters, yes, very nice. Don't want to be a frail old lady. That's why I joined CalFit. Doreen, thanks. Your check's in the mail for giving me a shout out. Keep struggling with belly fat. That's why I work out. Yeah, the grandchildren one comes up. I like it. So you guys are forward-thinking people. That's good. So there's the motivation right there. So then let's stop that movie with bad ending and let's create an ending with, well, the Hollywood, cliche ending where everything good turns out, right? It never is quite that simple. But if I follow through, if I do the right things day to day right now, what does daily life look in not only now, but in the future? Some examples here for you. I lost the chat, but yeah, that's it, Sandy. We're worried about going to an Ozempic. Yeah, we don't need to give the number, but you lost a massive amount of weight this year. Love it. Huge. That's what it's all about. And you did it with a sustainable lifestyle approach, not an injection that you potentially have to stay and pay forever. Not to say that's not part of the plan for some. So this is the alternative path. More consistent energy, clothes fitting without stress. I think that's a big one. Just having anything you can grab out of the closet and not having to, make it fit right. Confidence to say yes to anything that involves physical exertion, and no future medications disease. Never can guarantee that one. But if you stack the deck in your favor, lifestyle really is the trigger for a lot of this stuff. Okay, Ross, yeah. Uniforms are getting too tight now. I'm getting them on easier. Love it. Awesome, guys. Because really, at the end of the day, it's not about the weight we lose. It's about becoming the type of person who keeps promises, not only to coaches or community members, but ourselves. Because this is that identity shift I talk about. Embodying the future version you want starts with choices you make today. And no one's batting 100% with their choices. Everyone's going to get, sucked into overeating something or skipping a workout, or abandoning the plan for a few days. But it's those who have their identity tied to becoming the best version of themselves inside and out that tend to not let things slide for too long. And that's really the key. Because in the age of AI and Google, you've got the information at your fingertips, but a lot of those on the call that I speak to every day are still stuck. So what is that gap? That's what we're going to talk about right here to finish this call. So once you have a strong why, we've already identified for a lot of you guys in the chat, energy, grandkids, avoiding medication, whatever it was, whatever your why was, keep that front of mind. Now you have to have an identity attached to being a person that's deserving of those results. Unfortunately, the work is required. And then how you implement is full immersion. So what the heck is immersion? So full immersion is, the reason I am employed. It's surrounding yourself with new standards, new environment, someone watching the details so you don't make the wrong choices too often. This 14-day plan gives you, what structure feels like, having a meal plan, workout, whatever. But, a community coaching program, surrounding yourself with the right people too, is what keeps it when motivation fades. Because if you're around people that are making the right choices and they're showing up daily, just by osmosis, you pick up on that. You make better choices. I'm a firm believer in that. I mean, that's how I've kind of created this business in the first place that you guys are attending. I was in the right groups, in the right rooms with coaches that frankly, were role models for me. Some who were peers, but we all had big plans for ourselves and for the communities we wanted to impact. And if I was around a bunch of turkeys, not eagles, I wouldn't be here, 100%. 3 people in the waiting room. Oh my gosh, guys. A little late. So one example of the scale line, just to give you a full scan here, you can see from May to January, actually 1 pound difference on the scale in the wrong direction. However, look at the fat mass, down 8.2 pounds, and the muscle up 9.2 pounds. So she started roughly around June, I think, with me. So June to January, that big a swing. The scale won't always show it, but losing 8 pounds of fat and gaining 9 pounds of muscle is the definition of recomposition. That's what you want to have happen. Because you can starve yourself and see the scale drop, but how much of it is water? How much of it is muscle? How much of it is bone? Things that are going to put you in the personal care home. Although you'd be well attended to by her, as yet said. All right. Power of community. That was a DEXA scan, yeah. And I wouldn't obsess about scans. Like everything we track in the app gives me all the data I need. Sometimes a DEXA can even be wrong. So trying to think where she went. There's a couple places that do it. I can give you an example after your lifestyles, I think. But body measure is another. So power of community, normal people, but shared standards, shared momentum. Like you stop feeling like you're on Lonely Island. This is a tough process to do. Everyone understands that. And if you're trying to do it on your own, that's what sinks you. When you're on a Saturday, low energy, and the pizza flyer is sitting there on the counter. Right? Knowing you got to check in Monday and report in how you did on the weekend helps you make better choices. It's as simple as that. Yeah, blah, blah. There we go. I'm rambling now, but we're going to summarize this really quick. No plan works without putting it into action consistently. So I really am a firm believer 92% of our clients win. The 8% I'm still trying to figure out. I talked about that the other day. Check in daily. When you miss a workout, I see it. I call it out. It's not only myself watching, though. You have your peers, and standards go up by default. It's not pressure. It's about upgrading the version of you that you want to become to get the results you want to have that why materialize in the future. All right. So for those on the call who aren't yet a member, this is the next step. So I'm not a salesperson. It's either with me or my coordinator, Rob, who's a member of our program. And we just have a consult to map out a 90-day plan for you. So you can hit that link in the chat if you haven't yet have this. If you're a member, if you want to explore this 14-day plan, just shoot me a message. I'm probably going to discourage 80% of you unless you have something really time sensitive, but keep it in your back pocket. Okay. Sorry, I meant to put the 14-day plan in the chat. So let me get to that. Here it is. Okay, so this is the download document for everything we discussed today. So you have that as your takeaway. And it gives you kind of the sample meal plan and so on. Yes, put it in your back pocket for now. All right, any questions on this, that, or the other thing? If you're a client of CalFit, I'd love for you to just share in the chat, like what's been kind of a surprising benefit. And if you were scared at first, what got you over the hill, over the hump? Because a lot of people are scared to take the leap with this stuff, but few regret it. So let's get to the bottom of that. Ah, yes, the retreat. Yeah. 30-pound club. Love it. Linda says benefit, more strength, stamina, energy. Bev, the structured approach. Yeah, that was a big theme of today's call. You don't need discipline and motivation. No one has that sustainably. You do need structure and support. And if you're lacking structure and support, that explains why you keep kind of reverting back to the same patterns, same identity, same whatever. All right. Questions? No questions. I've answered all your questions. Yeah, we discussed that privately, how aggressive you were in 10 months. Yeah, I'm the sustainable guy. I'm the 80-20 guy. I had fries the other night. I I'm not going to be confused for a ripped steroid fueled bodybuilder, but my ego isn't tied to how I look, but I want people to get healthy and get to optimal body fat so they don't get diabetes, heart disease, dementia. And like you guys touched on in the chat, get to retirement and be thriving, feel as good at 60 or close as you did at 40. That's the path forward. And it really happens with a lot of easier approach than people realize. It's just about consistency. Yeah, Lala and Taz connected and working together. It always makes it easier if the person you spend the most time with is on board, and it can really make it break it. Like my coaching gets easier if the spouse is supporting you. Guess says, I chose to believe I could do the work. It works. I stuck with it even when I didn't feel like it. Beautiful. I wish I knew who the guest was, but thanks for the shout out. Okay, well, we can leave it there. We tried to make this 30 minutes plus Q&A, so we've got a little over today. The replay will go out to everyone that registered. Hopefully you guys saved the link to that PDF. But before you jump in on that, just shoot me a message or two and ask. I don't want you, haphazardly going into this. because it's fairly aggressive and there's some things to consider. Sandy said, I thought I couldn't do it because I had both knees replaced. Boom. Made it better. Thanks. Your check's in the mail for saying join. It's so worth it. Awesome, guys. We'll leave it there. I'll stop sharing. Hopefully got some value. Now back to Olympic replays. Again, if you have questions, I know I saw a few notifications that people booked a chat, but if you're still a little skeptical, despite all the unpaid endorsements in the chat, you can just chat with me privately. Ask your questions there. Otherwise, talk soon. Have a good rest of your week.